belt as well. NTR, same thing, top 16s to his name this season. So Norway are one of the true powerhouses in
banned from both teams. That is very interesting to me, because Shudderwock, I would say, is feels like the top 3 guaranteed. It's very much been, at least so far today, the story of Mali Druid, Shudderwock, Shane. Now, like, it's just a difference in power levels, like Mage versus Druid. Okay, so let's take a look. Is that big Mage?
It is, yeah. This is
okay.
That's huge.
That looks very convenient.
That's huge. Yeah, that's like the one matchup they had that they wanted to run into the Mali Druid.
It's gonna be Nexoc 40 versus Cobain. Honestly, I thought it was almost like a silhouette there with the camera for Cobain. I thought it was just like a complete silhouette, and you had to guess which player it was without seeing the name there for a second. But it is going to be the even warrior versus, the even warlock versus the warrior. What do you make of this matchup? Because all I can see is a mountain giant right now.
Yeah, I mean, good starting point. We had it in our highlight package in the last series where a mountain giant appeared and then disappeared. But yeah, it's all about threat generation for the even warlock here, and it's one of those matchups where your opponent is not going to do a great deal until they explode in the late game. And your job is just to generate threats that stick to the board. The hard part from the even warlock side is exactly how those threats are rationed, because, you know, more than 2 of your sizable threats on the board, if they then just get killed by Brawl, that's such a huge commitment into one card. You know, if you trade a Mountain Giant for an Execute and then you trade a Twilight Drake for a Shield Slam or whatever, like, eventually you're going to get on top of that 1-for-1 exchange. If you throw too much into a big Warpath clear or a big Brawl, that's when you can start to get into a mess and run out of threats. Or if you're unable to aggressively lower your own health total quick enough to turn your Hooked Reaver into threats.
Yeah, and I will say some of the games we've seen so far with Warrior have been against Mage, where frankly not a lot happens for a very long time. This is not what you will see here. Warrior has to respond, and we see obviously the quest keep, but not a bad opening either with Acolyte of Pain. Saronite Chain Gang we saw is just a good tool to just put speed bumps in the way of the Mountain Giant. If the Hellfire comes out to clear them off, then that makes it much more shield slammable. And much more easy to deal with. Obviously an Execute as well would be good. So all of these small interactions are going to kick off here, but mainly to start off with, Indonesia are going to be pressing that live tap button.
Yeah, in Indonesia we do, I believe, get our first little vision of a team that has chosen to group together in the same location to play, which is the prerogative of anyone that wants to. They are of course welcome to do that, but no, chat, it's not 3 versus 1. All the teams are welcome and encouraged, in fact, to get on comms and talk to each other over the headsets. Everyone will be involved in every play, I'm sure.
I will say, if there's any way I could, I would try and get physically together with the teammates, you know what I mean? Because I feel like it's just way easier to discuss when there's just a group of you sat in the same room as opposed to like a voice channel or something. Do you see the Acolyte just get dropped down? Not really too worried about any of those other ways an Acolyte can get cleanly cleared up without drawing too many cards. But now the question arises right now, like what does Norway do with this Acolyte? Is it even worth a Warpath? Do you hero power shield slam it to get, a draw? Like, Doomsayer seems like a fantastic answer right now.
It does, yeah. I mean, especially because, Warpath is only a single activation on your opponent's side. It's not as even as if they can just trade a Warpath for 2 cards here. They're just kind of stuck with an Acolyte that they have to expend a resource, like truly cycle one of these cards. They have to throw away a card to turn it into a different card if they want to actually cycle off this Acolyte.
In this matchup, is that just good enough? If Warpath could say, right in this spot, draw a card.
Warpath's very good in the late game because a Gul'dan board, when it comes back, is very often 4 health minions across the board. Unless there's the Pit Lord or Dread Infernal, whatever you end up playing in your deck. Unless that comes down, you're going to end up with a 4 health board sweeping away. So yeah, I don't want to commit Warpath. I don't want to commit Shield Slam because, again, that's your Mountain Giant answer, your Twilight Drake answer. So yes, the cute answer was just playing out the Cornered Sentry and using that to trade into one of the 1/1s, which definitely looks like the right play to me because you're happy to throw away your Taunt minions. They still go on the quest counter. That you don't really care too much about your board state. You're not going to win on board. You're going to win by getting through to your hero power as quickly as you can.
Again, let's just rename cards. That Cornered Sentry was just 2 mana +1 to quest. That's a very good card in my opinion. So, that's absolutely fine. But now...
Literal Hearthstone cards. Actually sounds like a good meme web series. You should start working on that immediately.
I'll do my
Retire from casting.
Now I see your plan.
We'll bring Darrock in and then you can do it. You choose.
How long have you been building up to this, Sal? You just waited for me to have a good idea.
You think I plan insulting you way more than I do. It's just my natural instinct.
You do, because you wake up in the morning.
Planning to insult you?
No, your plan is, well, I'm awake.
Oh, I see.
Right. Stay in bed all day.
I thought you meant I had like a calendar on my wall where it's like July 17th, insult Raven, July 18th, insult Raven, and I'm just checking them off one by one.
Also extremely and quite honestly scarily likely.
Okay.
But let's look at this now. This is where the game picks up and gets very, very serious. The Mountain Giant's on the board. The Cyrenac did come down as a speed bump. And now, what is Nexuck going to do to keep this Mountain Giant swinging? Because that is priority number one right now. You're not too bothered about tapping at this moment in time. It's not priority number one, and you're not too bothered about much else. It's all about how many hits to the face can this Giant get.
Yeah. Because he's only not tapping this turn because he'll go up to 10 cards in hand, which would then be an eventual burn. But I would say that he does want to tap wherever possible, because with that Hooked Reaver on the far left-hand side of his hand, he needs to keep threats coming as quickly as possible.
Sure, I'm meaning more if you've got the option to remove a taunt and hit face with Giant and not tap versus tap and trade the taunt.
Yes.
It's all about getting that Giant to face, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so options-wise, there is the Hooked Reaver in hand, but that's going to be, for a little bit later on when we're looking more at 15 health total or less. Outside of that, it sounds bad because you don't really want to play Gen as a card, but just to add an extra beefy dude onto the board, it generally isn't the end of the world. It's definitely not quite the level of Baku, of just a full 9 mana on a very slow minion.
By the way, I'm pretty confident you just saw one of the little moments of optimization that comes from team comms there, because a Stonehill Defender was played, a Cornered Sentry was picked up, Colbane went to pick up the Cornered Sentry and play it, and then someone got in his ear and said, no, play the natural one from your deck, because that one that you just picked could be anything. You're giving away too much information, which, yep, it is slightly better to do it that way.
And when it's better, you just do it.
Yeah, and when you've got 4 brains, you catch more of those things than you would do no matter how good you are when you're playing on your own. Well, this is a curve so far from Indonesia.
And that allows a hit to face for the Giant. And I would say this is just the exact amount of power, right? Brawl, even your worst case Brawl scenario for the Warlock side, for Nexuck side, he gets a 4-3.
Yeah.
Right? Best case, an 8-8. Middle case, a 4-5. Like, this is just the right shape of board to make removal awkward here for Team Norway and Colbine here.
Completely agree. And there's really not a lot that Norway can be doing except just march on down the path towards this quest completion. They have got one of the fastest possible quest completions with the draw that they've had. Phantom Militia and Stonehill Defender picking up cheap taunts alongside playing a taunt on 2, which is actually quite rare for you to do as well. This turn 7 potential completion is about as quick as it gets, but they're just under so much pressure on the other side.
Yeah, double Sentry means that you can actually just like Sentry Blood Razor next turn and even be quite clean about things. That doesn't leave him much mana though. One of the biggest issues there is no shield blocks just to get rid of this Giant. If this Giant was just gone, like Colbine would be in such a better spot because you're just terrified of this 8 attack punching through. And because of the level of heal, we saw earlier that the Shroom Brewers can heal the Giants, and you still have Spell Stones. You still have other ways potentially in the deck to gain some heal. This looks a little bit too far for my liking.
Yeah,
let's just trade 8 again.
Right,
fine.
so he essentially converts his Spellstone into 4 damage to face, right? Which you can't do with Spellstone, but exactly, you put a 2/4 on the board, which gives your opponent an actual high roll outcome from the brawl. I will say, if you use both of your minions to trade, you're lowering 66% of the power outcomes of your brawl anyway, right? Because you end up with a 4-1 and a 4-3 instead of a 4-1 and a 4-5 as outcomes. But that 2/4 is definitely giving Norway a little window that they might not have otherwise had.
Yeah, and we saw Colbane just like, fist pump, get excited, the brawl's drawn, and then everyone's just gone, just wait a second.
Yes.
Let's just look at what we've got and work out what we're going to do. But I don't see many other options outside of this play now because it's too good. It's too good to do. If a Raptor or the taunts win, that's a win in air quotes for Colbane.
And look at the importance of the concealed Cornered Sentry as well. As, you know, with both copies of Cornered Sentry gone, Indonesia would be like, oh, sick, they can't Cornered Sentry Brawlers anymore.
Wanna bet? Oh, okay.
That is a big deal that the 4-5 survives. That's the second best outcome out of, what, 8 for Indonesia that turn?
Yeah. Problem is next turn as well. The one the one extra health. Imagine Lich King just didn't exist for a second. Like, Garrosh wouldn't even clear it because you can't hero power as well. So the Black Knight being on 5 health is huge, and the brawl was fantastic.
Look at him.
The Cornered Sentry was fantastic.
Oh, they're all so excited already. You just saw, like, why don't just rub their hands together? They're all, like, hunching together closer. They're so much more animated.
If I take a game off Norway, I'm excited too. I'm pretty pumped to go 1-up versus Norway in HGG if that was me.
You have to be a little bit careful, you know. These aren't just random players that we've pulled in off the street, you know. These aren't like rank 15 casual Hearthstone players. They're very, very good players who enter, you know, tour stop qualifiers and have a positive win rate in them. So they know what they're doing. But yes, they will know that they're underdogs in this series as much as everyone.
I mean, if I was on Team Sweden, I'd be excited about going 1-up versus Norway, right? They're just an exceptionally strong team. So yeah, no disrespect to the Indonesian players, of course. And I think this is just what has to be done. The hero power has to hit Lich King, and it's just a yes or a no.
Oh, wow, okay. Who's excited now?
Oh, yeah. Haha! What about me? Was it ever... Probably wasn't worth shield slamming, right?
Shield Slam and hit it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't really think it changes much in the grand scheme of things, but it was a great way to just hold on to that game turn after turn for Norway.
It's one of the early things that you need to learn is like they don't play that many big threats that you can win board and keep up pressure with, but they have enough that you can have 3 to 4 huge turns in a row. And if you're only going to have 3 to 4 huge board turns in a game, you want to make sure they are in a row, because that's how they get the most pressure over the shortest amount of time and have the biggest impact.
If you stutter, then that's it. Pretty much, you're just not going to chain enough threats. And let's go then. We're ready for this one. We've talked a lot about what we think about the matchup, but I'm not going to lie. A large chunk of that just doesn't matter right now, because we're going to talk about what the actual matchup is going to be played out like. Hunter Race for Norway and Duao on Indonesia. And Malfurion also a big deal. You can just jam him for 3 every turn. 4 with the Twig. Just go face. That's extra damage.
It's a great looking hand already, though. The Ooze is in place. Stonehill Defender is there just to curve out and pick up some potential threats for later. And then, of course, that Lich King that we mentioned is such a huge heal as well.
But this is it, right? People are like, oh, well, what if they don't draw Ooze or, you know, whatever? It's like, no, you play this game as if they will Ooze your Twig on the last possible turn. That's how you have to play. Because the time it takes to swing the Twig, it's going to happen. Arcane Tyrant is nice though. It's what I like to call a nothing threat.
Okay.
Okay, so you nourish on 5.
Yeah.
Or on 5 mana. Yeah, when I talk about things like this in Druid, because it's not turn 5. But you nourish on 5, play Tyrant. What does Control Mage do to kill the Tyrant, right?
Okay.
You don't really want to meteor it, but it's going to hit you for 4 every turn. So it's kind of like an awkward... You don't want to poly it. There are big threats in the deck. Do you Blizzard and pass, but then it's just still alive and you play the Blizzard on 1 minion? It's a very weird threat to deal with because it's almost there, but not quite.
In this matchup specifically, I definitely agree. There's other matchups where I've purposely found myself not playing it for 0 mana on 1 turn just so I can play it on my UI turn and have like 2 threats at the same time because it's just so much more effective against the type of removal the other deck has. This is completely the opposite in this matchup. The most effective you can be against their removal is just playing 1 minion that's too small to polymorph every turn.
Yeah, it's so weird. Because there's just no good way in the deck to deal with it. It's like Doll maybe the best way, and even that's just really weird.
The thing is, from the mage side, is quite often you can just go ahead and rip a Dragon's Fury on it if you want, because you have like way too much AoE in your deck to it's just
for this match.
Yeah, it's just overkill against Mali Druid. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw that exact interaction happen sometime in the near future.
Yeah, and there's always, we talk about the Mali Druid draws his deck every game, right? Because you do have Nourish in there as well that can be used as draw. at any point, if you have UI in your hand, you never nourish for cards. You want to empty your hand, nourish straight up to the mana to UI as early as possible to give you the options. I think you don't need to draw with it.
I think UI joining the game is really what made Nourish a good card, because 5 mana draw 3 is a terrible card. You don't want to play that.
Right.
5 mana for drawing 3 cards is not something that you're happy to do, but it's a card that you can put in your deck and do that sometimes when you have UI as your backup, because your plan A is just to use Nourish to get to 10 mana as quickly as you can, and then UI is the best card in the game when you cast it on turn 6.
Yeah, with an Arcane Tyrant, or 2.
It's the greatest feeling in the game when you cast it and the button doesn't change color, and you're just waiting for that Arcane Tyrant to appear.
Right now, though, this is the early ramp into Malfurion to just get it live, and then UI to fill the rest is great, because you've been given the time and the space to... If Malfurion was Malygos, well, it's kind of -1 card right now, because it's not going to be played for another 6-7 turns, maybe more. Whereas Malfurion, you just always want it as soon as possible and start threatening 3 damage a turn, because Mage can't really just keep up with 3 damage to face from hand, effectively, like, per turn.
That's true.
It's kind of nuts. Go for the runes as the secret, so it's going to do the 6 damage to anything that's played. Probably with a nod to the lack of minions in the deck. It either kills a second Tyrant, or it does a lot of damage to Malygos or to Alexstrasza, for example, because there aren't really that many playable minions from the deck itself.
No. Worth noting as well, this is Faceless Manipulator variation from Norway, which perhaps is a little bit surprising, knowing that Hunter Ace practices with Orange so much, who's been a big advocate of the Starfire version recently. And I know you've been trying out both versions. I don't have much experience with the Starfire variation. Like, where do the differences come in between the two builds?
The biggest difference is with Faceless, you can do things like kill a million armor because you get 2 Malygos on the board, but Starfire is so much better at just like freeze maging your opponent, just set them up for 2 turns and say, well, now you have combos like Starfire Swipe into Malygos Moonfire Innovate something, so you can really set up 2-turn kills. But for classes that can heal or just naturally gain a lot of health, I think having the big turn for Malygos with Faceless is absolutely insane, because the damage is just doubled from having 2 Malygos. What I will say is, if you're expecting weapon removal, like, I don't know what Faceless does anymore that well, because any minion, you play 1 minion at a time, and you often can't Faceless the same turn. And if they don't kill that minion, well, you're probably in an amazing spot anyway, and yes, Faceless wins you the game. Maybe Faceless is just good to Faceless your opponent's stuff? I don't know. That's why I like Starfire so much.
Can we get a count in chat of how many times Raven said Faceless in that explanation?
Faceless.
It was a lot. I know chat likes counting, so...
Especially to lethal. Oh, okay, just a 2-1. Great artwork. Second Nourish is a little bit wonky right now.
Yeah, it's a little awkward because he doesn't... Norway and Hunter Ace don't really want to use any of these cards this turn. But if they don't use one of these cards, then they draw up to 6 on the next turn and then cast UI down to 5, back up to 10. And if they don't draw an Arcane Tyrant, then they're in trouble. So yeah, I think you just end up having to like throw away your Wrath potentially.
I thought Hunter Ace was just gonna just rip the Naturalize off the top with 1 Wrath draw just to kill the Etin. You can keep 3 of the minions on the board though, I think. Oh, he's probably decided between the 3 minions versus the 1 Tyrant.
They, Raven. They are deciding. They are deciding. He is not a one-man machine this time.
Well, okay. He is a one-man machine, but he's playing in a team for Norway. Yeah, the turns aren't going to be too crazy after that because of the Ultimate Infestation. And also, he even has a backup for the second Keysmith, right? Because he has Moonfire in hand. Obviously not what you want to do, but if a second Keysmith comes down, a second Secret appears, and it could be Counterspell, like, that's the perfect timing to drop that Counterspell out of nowhere. But the Moonfire, although, would be a bit of a sacrifice. Not as much of a sacrifice as just UIing nothing. This is where you see the difference in ramp and why Druid's so powerful right now is Andre's just floated 5 mana.
What to do?
And Indonesia only have 6 total.
Yeah.
So, like, you look at Lich. Oh, Lich King could have been played if Hunter-Ace had it, or Team Norway had it, and then Indonesia like, we wish.
And his turn was Wrath Hero Power Pass. You know, like, he can just get away with that because of the mana advantage that he has. But, you know, as an answer to, like, the age-old question, well, how do you win if you get oozed? Well, just look at this situation. Imagine if Norway here, like, could go 1 turn UI into Tyrant, the next turn Lich King, then just drop the Malagos. Like, eventually something sticks because...
You Alex them for good luck.
Yeah, right? You've drawn so many more cards from your opponent and gained so much more mana than your opponent that on average you're just sticking threats that they can't deal with. And the reason why Control Mage is the one matchup that we pointed out right from the start, is the one that Indonesia wanted, is because it's the one matchup where that equation just isn't true. Like, if you go UI into Arcane Tyrant 1 turn, great, they AoE you. Then you drop your Lich King, they polymorph you. Then you drop your Malagos, they Voodoo Doll ping you. You know, that path is just unlikely to happen because they only have to draw 3 out of their 10 removals in their deck to be able to deal with you.
Yeah, it's one of the few decks that's even remotely equipped to deal with stuff like that. For here right now, I would like to see Norway actually just go face. That's all you want to see. There's double Moonfire in hand. You know there's no ice blocks knocking around anymore. So just Malagos double Moonfire. You just kill people quite often with that combo as well. You don't have to do fancy stuff. And with the 3 damage hero power, like, he goes face, pushes 4 this turn, puts him to 16. 1 hero power is on 13. That's 1 off just lethal from hand, right? It's so nuts. I guess the difference between being 1 off and 2 off isn't that much different anyway, so I guess 1 trade's fine. If we're working the numbers like that.
Sure.
But overall, like, this is why the Malfurion is so important. Just face, 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 face.
What to do?
Just taking a moment to watch Indonesia's interactions as these turns are playing out, and I can't say that I'm seeing a ton of communication flying back and forth between the players.
Some there.
I think there was a lot of silence leading up to that point, and now, you know, the pilot has asked a question, and now the input's coming. It's not looking like there's too much being volunteered from the other 3 players.
Maybe that's a conscious decision.
I mean, I'm not criticizing it. I'm just saying what I see right now.
Because there's multiple routes, right? Maybe it's like, this is my deck, guys.
Let me think. If I need help, I'll ask.
I will talk to myself through the plays. If you spot something crazy, we could go for it, but otherwise, just be quiet. And that's completely reasonable.
Malagos Double Moonfire is saved up in hand now for Norway, and they do play a single copy of Innovate as well on top of that, which gives them the it gives them the clean 15 right from hand, which is what you need. Again, another answer to the question of how do you win if you get oozed. Well, Alex Straza puts them to 15. Mali Double Moonfire, Innovate, Malfurion Hero Power is that 15 that you need.
It's so nutty, isn't it? I'm just working out right now. Obviously, you have to consider always Jaina, right? That has to be in your mind.
Can we go 1 game without mentioning her?
Well, it's relevant to this, though. It's relevant to this. Exactly.
I just want to set it as a challenge.
Oh, well yeah.
We've already failed this game.
The game where we don't cast Mage.
Yeah, no, next Control Mage game, we're not allowed to say Frostlich Jaina. Or any variation thereof describing that card.
Okay, challenge accepted. Did go for Mali, okay.
Suntrace is going to force through the damage now. Put Daoyu down to 5. And that means on the follow-up, they can draw through, look for damage spells from hand, and they're asking the question of having the Malagos killed. I don't know whether this play was made expecting the Mali to be down as a 4/12. But the secrets that hadn't been tested for, of course, are what? Frozen Clone, Mirror Entity, and Explosive Runes. Those have been the ones that haven't have tested.
Yeah. I'm working on something else myself here, right?
Okay.
So, I struggle to argue with a team of very good Norwegian players. But I was wondering, do you not set up the damage just with hero power first? and then you can't target your own minion with Meteor, right? I'm not going crazy. So then the turn to survive would have to be Artificer, and then Flame Strike, Blizzard, or Fury. Fury kills the minion anyway, so that's not a win, but kind of a win. If they can't Meteor anything, that's one less card they can use to proc the armor. And then you just Malyghost them anyway. What was the benefit of Malyghost then versus now is my question.
Because it also made your opponent have to deal with the Malyghost. I think like the inverse of what you just said is that they have to also be able to deal with it as they gain health. Which begs the question of whether they expected it to be a 4/6 at the start of the turn.
Because there's already 2 polys and 2 dolls knocking around. That's my worry. There's way more removal than there is specific AoE that they could cast. Also, it does give them the option of swipe, that extra damage being playable from hand that they draw because they didn't have it in before.
Right.
So if they drew swipe this turn and they only hero powered, it's -4.
Yeah, I mean, there's the first thing I said when the damage was dropped, they're then saying themselves they can even like cycle Ferocious Howl, pick up swipe, and still be able to push damage at the end. Like that was my first instinct as to why they were going for it.
I wonder if this is as good a time as any for the Plague. Gain 2, you can still kill the Artificer, and then you have double branching pass for damage.
Right.
And like, okay, if Indonesia Dragon's Fury this, okay, cool.
Yeah.
You know, great, whatever. So this can become what, like?
Doom says
10.
not it.
Oh, we need to innovate.
What are you trying to do?
Well, if this board lives, and even if a taunt gets dropped, which you'd feel kind of safe, then like naturalize branching. Let's go.
And then you want to innovate the hero power as well at the end?
Yeah, to actually do, because it's that's 11. It would only do
Well, branching
10.
swipes more damage than branching, right?
Isn't it the same?
I think say if one of the taunts gets killed. Is that not what you said?
No.
Okay.
If the board survives, I'm
Okay.
saying, and even if Indonesia play a taunt, you naturalize the taunt away.
Okay.
Yeah, which is why you can't hero power. So they're just 1 damage off that right now. I'm just trying to like think ahead because these branching paths are also weird to use right now because you don't need the armor in a lot of scenarios versus mage. So let's see a Dragon's Fury and see that Polymorph is still in the deck. There's some extra knowledge. Oh, snap pick there for the gold Shire Footman, just to put something away. Wow, double naturalize. That's what you got to think about as well. Can they burn cards? Can they do fatigue damage? Because you know there is still 15 cards left in the mage deck, but when you draw, making your opponent draw 4 cards for 2 mana, it's definitely something to consider.
It is. And I wonder how quickly Norway want to get any kind of value out of these naturalizers as well, because of course there's the Skulking Geist threat always from Control Mage coming back the other way.
See no Spellstones either, which would have been real nice to push some damage face this turn.
Yep.
Or to enable you to push some damage to face.
But you can kind of see the plan for the Mali turn really crystallizing in Norway's hand, because the next 2 cards they drew, the Swipe and the Ultimate Infestation, were both lethal on the following turn. If they made the play that they did, and there was no defensive option in terms of taunt or gaining health from Indonesia's side, and one of those options covers one of those options from the opponent as well.
Also, as well, you often put yourself in a position with this deck that even a Ultimate Infestation, an Ultimate Infestation to face that overdraws you and burns even into fatigue, does not do enough fatigue damage to take a draw. You actually almost always end up winning that game.
Yeah, I love this, by the way. I was starting to work up towards it when I was saying, get some use out of these naturalizers while you can, but also turn that branching pass into 2 damage when you can, because when's the next time that branching pass is going to deal 2 damage? And now if you can't heal again as Indonesia, again we're back in the spot where Swipe and Ultimate Infestation ends the game. And if you do manage to heal again, Norway can again, right as you've been saying since the start, 3 damage to face with Malfurion, 3 damage to face to Malfurion. Now you're back in that spot again, and you're out of Artificers now. So there is 1 card left in your deck that will then fish you out of it.
Yeah, it's kind of great, and this is why this set up so early on. I mentioned about Spreading Plague. Like, wait, Plague for 2 is probably as good. Plague for 2 against bad minions is probably as good as it's going to get,
with
right?
2 branching paths in the hand at the time
That's why I was
well.
like, wait, can you double branching pass and then naturalize just to win? But, you know, you just jump straight to how much damage is each card in hand. Really nice, though, setting up the whole, well, you've got to ping or remove somehow.
Well, they have to throw a removal spell at this with the Artificer. That's what they have to do. Second Meteor comes down, back up to 11. Now there is that issue, of course, the Artificer has to be dealt with as well, so you can't commit all of your damage to face this turn. But there's just not a lot happening from Indonesia's side right now.
So I guess you either want to, potentially?
Oh, it's a lot of damage that's not hitting face, though.
It is, but it's 1 more damage than swipe and then hero power face, but that doesn't get you to the UI lethal anyway. UI can draw, there's still a second Tyrant in the deck as well, if my memory serves.
I believe so, yeah.
So if this turn could be a 5/5 or 4/4, remove the armor generation and say, again, you have to now clear to be even safe. And he's just, Norway have just seen multiple clears coming out. They did naturalize twice, though.
You could also, you could Nourish draw, Ferocious Howl draw, still hero power the 1/2, and still have a 3 out of 10 of hitting the Arcane Tyrant, while maintaining both potential cards to go face. Hello!
Okay, I didn't see this coming. Do you have a big enough spell? You know, Indonesia, that's what they're asking.
They also had the out. I believe the Innovate still left in their deck, so they had Innovates. They had 2 copies of Spellstone and an Innovate in those 10 cards as well, which they could have used to kill that Arcane Tyrant at the end. So there's actually a few outs even on top of that. And now double swipe hero power, they can deal 11, which means Indonesia have to heal for 5 or more. Sorry, more, they have to heal for 6 even. Sorry.
The Blizzard
Quick maths.
It's pretty important.
Blizzard was kind of clutch.
Yeah, because I was looking at it, well, to be fair, they've only got Polymorph. That's only 4 armor. Look at this, Polymorph into Blizzard.
Gonna gain the full 10.
Not messing around at this point. Oof. Oof. We all felt that one. That might just be a bit too much right now.
Right in the Hunter Ace.
Right in the Hunter's face? Hunter Ace's face? Face? Norway?
Something like that, yeah.
Saying things.
Build your own cast.
New hero coming to the expansion. Caster. That'd be so sick. The hero power works like Builder Beast, but you choose 2 casters to cast together. That'd be so nuts. I'd pick Lorenda every time.
Yeah, that class would just have such a bad matchup against Rogue, though. You'd just be getting sapped constantly.
Plague again does open up damage. It might sound silly, but that's a 3/5 right now.
Yes, it is.
And also the Twig. You swing for 4 instead of 3. That's, again, it sounds dumb, but it's extra points of damage. Which at this point, when you've seen Team Norway just scramble for every single, maximum amount of damage from every single card in the deck they can, it's important.
It is, but now Indonesia have to be very, very clear what their win condition is. If they get into a world where they just think, okay, well, there's 1 damage on board, we can drop a huge threat, that's how they can end up losing this game. Yes. Their win condition now is just fatigue Norway. Just get out of range of all of the damage, and when they literally can't put any damage on board anymore, that's when you can start thinking about playing threats of your own. But every source of damage on board needs to be removed.
Right, and the funny thing is, it can be with all the cards that are in hand right now, but are they going to have the discipline to do it?
To Voodoo Doll ping a 1/5?
Yeah. There's Arcane Tyrant. There's an Alexstrasza.
I mean, the fact that there's a Doomsayer in hand already just seems to make it quite straightforward to me. Like, you can Voodoo Doll, drop a Doomsayer, Voodoo Doll ping, drop the Doomsayer afterwards, and then be in a pretty strong position.
But I'm saying, like, you still need to make that play, right? You can have the options and still mess it up a little bit. Doomsayer as well? Okay.
Sure. Spellstone was the big threat here. If Norway had been sitting on an upgraded Spellstone this game and they were able to do 6 with it, that's where this play could have potentially got a little bit messy. Like, Indonesia would have ended up taking a little bit of damage that they didn't need to. The Doomsayer is a nice hedge, though, in terms of it even like operates nicely around like Faceless Manipulator, which is one of the few ways that Norway could dig themselves out of this game from here. Yeah. And with both Naturalized used, a huge 8-8 taunt is a massive roadblock for Indonesia.
They're really missing this Innovate, and I feel like they have all game. Because with Innovate, you could well, it depends how much you want to, but my argument is, well, what's the left to actually Faceless? But like, what if you just Faceless for a Lich King card this turn? But I was looking at Ferocious Howl into the buff Spellstone into hero power trade, but you actually just don't even end up needing to do that because you can't kill the Doomsayer anyway. So Faceless, you can draw, of course, but I think just 5 mana for a Lich King card, I'll take that because there's nothing else to create. And if it's Death Coil, whew.
Yeah, I think the Huntress recognizes this is about as good as that Faceless Manipulator is ever going to get. Takes his 1 card, upgrades his Spellstone even more. Hello. Things are getting spicy. There's one out. It's not that.
They just lose.
Yup. He dead.
Oh my. Don't give Huntress Malygos Druid. He just wins. But in all seriousness, you've seen throughout this game, and hopefully we've put that across, that Team Norway have got every single possible point of damage from their deck this game. Yeah, that's been available to them. Every single point.
Like, I hope it paints the picture that, you know, Malygos Druid is a deck that rewards what you put into it, and hope that it illustrates the point that Team Norway are very, very good at playing it. Because look at the plays that on the surface looked very strange. The early Malygos looks very weird. Ultimate Infestationing the face instead of a 1-2 looks very weird, on top of all the different ways they had to kill the 1-2 that turn. I'm sure there'll be someone out there like debating that some of those plays weren't even correct, but that is the joy of Malygos Druid. It's so complex that you're always going to have that debate.
And I think as well, you asked me about the differences in the builds. Fantastic example, yeah? The Faceless gave them a card that does 5 damage.
Sorry, Indonesia's reaction when that first card got pointed at their face was
like,
just
not like this.
Head took back. Could not believe there was spells being pointed at their face that turn. Boom. You're about to get some worse news, Indonesia. There are 3 spells pointed at your face this turn, and they combine to kill you. That is 1 game to 1. Mali Druid gets the win for Hunter Ace. Color me surprised.
Yes.
Also Mind Blast and Anduin and then end the game. Big Spell Mage, your quest is draw Jaina and then play Jaina and then you win. But the quest is assembled by Warrior generally a lot quicker than Priest gets to their win condition. And since both decks are packed with a surplus of removal, they have more removal than you need in this matchup. Both of them do. So the board states quite often get neutralized, as well as get just congested with all the taunts that, that Indonesia are going to play. So it does more often than not come down to that ultimate win condition that each deck plays. And in the one-on-one interaction, the Warrior ultimate win condition is just stronger for this matchup than the Priest is.
Okay, and do you think when we move on to the mulligan aspect of that, then that actually a mulligan for Warrior would look like a full just throw all the removal, keep any taunts, and just go? Because is there anything you're scared of that you feel you need to remove in the first, what, 6 turns of the game?
Not particularly, no. Like, stifling a Nausea Cleric for card draw can be important, but the Priest will often be scared to commit an early Nausea Cleric anyway, so it's not a big deal. Yeah, I'm a big fan of just picking up your taunt minions as quickly as you can, and whatever other card draw tools, Blood Razors, Acolyte of Pain, that kind of thing. And just getting there as quickly as you can, just turbo quest plan.
Yeah, speaking of turbo quest, we have the Blackwell Pixie in the hand there for Indonesia, so they'll be able to do their hero power twice on the turn they play it. Is there anything else that's too crazy in the list, maybe non-standard, that you can see, Sol?
First off, I'm glad that we've confirmed they're playing the quest, because in their submitted deck list, they actually had like the drop-down thing that comes out when you mouse over in their screenshot, so it covers the quest. So from what we could see, they were just playing 29 Quest Warrior cards and a Goldshire Footman in their deck.
just a box.
Yeah, exactly. But no, it's obviously Quest Warrior. But apart from that, is not a great deal out of the ordinary. There's no Battle Rage. That's one of the big tech points we've seen. There's one Direhorn Hatchling at the top, which is kind of another, sometimes not kind of card in there. But apart from that, pretty much what you'd expect. The big power taunt cards with the Phantom Militia, the Stonehill Defenders, and the Saronite Chain Gangs, and then just the normal package of removal, as well as one Iron Beak Owl rounding things out.
Yeah, no, it's going to come in handy if you can draw it next turn, as it looks like this is a pretty good Twilight Drake turn. And you said, oh, how do you deal with the Cleric? Well, Tower Creepers are pretty good normally, just as good as they are versus an Acolyte. So this Acolyte of Pain kind of stranded on the board right now, but just in time that Twilight Drake sort of appeared on the draw this turn and gave Team Norway something to do, because without that, they kind of had a very awkward pass turn.
Sure. And here's some of the other reason why, Warrior can edge out a big advantage in this matchup, because they can save tools like, Cornered Sentry for armor gain, with the Dry Whisker Armorer for that combination. Of course, armor is not something that Control Priest can really interact with particularly well. If you lay down your armor late in the game after you've already stopped their minion advancement, because the Priest will be trying to be aggressive with minions for the first 6 to 8 turns. At that point, they're going to run out of steam a little bit because they don't have just an endless supply of minions in their deck. If at that point you can stop minions hitting you and then lay a bunch of armor on top of that you can keep for the rest of the game, that's very hard for Priest to interact with.
Yeah, I will say with double Cabal Shadow Priest in the Norway Priest list, it does mean that a lot of these taunts are stealable.
Sure.
But that's just extra little things chunking away throughout the game. And they do have Alex Straza, so they can deal a raw 15
But that's
damage.
why the armor gain is so
exactly, yeah. So they get that, but outside of that, that is it. The rest is just plugging away with those hero powers.
Right. I think, honestly, if Control Priest is going to steal a 2 attack or a 1 attack minion from you as Quest Warrior, your response to that is a definitive meh. You just let them get on with it. It's likely that that's the turn they're going to play into your brawl or something anyway.
Right.
So it's not going to have a huge impact overall on the game plan. You can keep it in mind because you don't want to have a single 2/6 as your only defense against 8 to 10 damage on the board, and then the Cabal Priest just steals it away and they push a bunch and strip all your armor.
Or even potentially just a 2/6 on the board, and the board goes from a 2/6 on your side to a 4/5 and a 2/6 on their side, because there's still 6 power on the board.
Sure.
There's the Direhorn. Some of that extra value, and I want to see the Pixie used to just armor twice. 4 armor for me, let's go. It's definitely a harder game, I would say, for Norway to play right now, because their plan is so weird, because their hand just gives them nothing to do a lot of the time.
Sure.
It's just, well, our plan is to hope to draw better as turns go on. You know what I mean, though,
It's a good plan for a hostile player to have.
Right, but you look at Indonesia, well, they have a very clear plan because they literally play a quest. They're playing their taunts, they get into the Sulfuris, and they're going to start killing their opponent. Whereas at the moment, Team Norway are just, I guess we could play a couple of things and try and get somewhere, as opposed to having something clear.
Snap him. This was the play all along from Norway. They went fishing with the Pyromancer to pick up Divine Hymn. Were very, very likely to do so, and now have the decision of which of these minions they want to interact with here. Because, of course, the Pyromancer is going to go off again, meaning they could trade into the 3/5 if they want to.
I don't see why not at this point. Right now, they're not in a position to Psychic Scream away the Death Rattle, which you would normally like to do because Psychic Scream does not proc the Death Rattle. So you can just say, no, put it back in your deck, I'm going to forget about it. They're not in a position to play Psychic Scream. They're actually winning the board, so you just take the better one off right now. And I said the Team Norway needed to actually get a plan and get some kind of road to success. Well, they just made one. Just literally created one. Like, there's 3 or 4 cards drawn this game. Yeah, this turn, sorry. And there's Anduin.
This Stonehill Defender number 1 and number 2 here is 4 taunts between them, which will push Indonesia up to the 7 they needed. They were 3 before they played this first Stonehill, so these 4 taunts, if they were cheap enough, would get them there, but they have not been offered any cheap options from this first Stonehill. Sunwalker is a great card against Priest, though, it's worth mentioning.
Yeah, I think it's really funny how Stonehill's power options change based on the deck, because you look at in Odd Paladin, you look at Tarim and stuff like that, but in some other decks, or of the past, just a big, massive free taunt is great. You look at Lich King,
and then in Quest Warrior,
it's like
Shield Bearer.
Yeah, give me a Gold Shine Footman, please. Like it's so funny to me, and it's just like how weird the card works sometimes. But yeah, this is not the powerful Stonehill you want. You want Phantom Militia, you want Saranac Chain Gang, you want any of the 1-drops. Again, yeah, let's go. 3-drop. Perfect.
Bear man.
This turn doesn't feel too great. Is this too deep to go with Acolyte potentially? So it looks like Norway going to start off with a powered shield just to see. Okay, that turn got way, way better right now. So now they can actually use the Cabal Shadow Priest to steal a Stonehill and trade off the other one. And 3 minions is never too bad with the Brawl. The only issue with the Brawl is that you have one extremely bad outcome for you, which is the 1-4 winning.
Yeah, 3 minions is pretty much the golden ratio when you're trying to play around Brawl. 2 minions will very rarely be enough to make them Brawl unless you have, 8/8s in your deck. But, 3 is enough to get the pressure up to the point where they have to, but it's still an allocation of resources that you're happy with as the more aggressive deck.
Should I ever consider waiting? They can't swing face this turn anyway.
Well, they're also considering waiting because they have the Twilight Acolyte combination in hand with the Cabal Shadow Priest on follow-up turns.
What you getting though?
I mean, big Stonehill taunts. There's a 6/9 that's been shuffled back into the deck already. There's some stuff, some things, some dudes, some lads, some gentlemen. Cards, basically, is what I'm getting at.
But it sounds like you've just decided all cards are male, Swattle.
That's true.
That was really weird, especially coming from you. You're normally all right with stuff like that. Where are you going with this?
For assuming inanimate digital objects gender.
How dare you? But I think everyone can agree we forgive you, so it's okay, and we can move on.
Thanks, world.
Execute usage is really weird as well, isn't it? Because none of the minions are really that threatening as a singular minion. It's just when do you need to relieve pressure, I guess, as opposed to what you want to kill. Because Execute on this Twilight Drake just wouldn't be that bad. It's still 4 damage a turn you're trying to work around and a high health pool.
Yep. No, I like it.
But like, there's not much. Well, if you execute a Shadow Priest, then that's the same. So why not just give yourself some room right now?
That's 6 of 7 now for Resdan in Indonesia, which means Iron Fur Grizzly can be used to activate on the following turn for 3, Weapon for 3, Hero Power for 2, makes the Magic 8 that they will have on the following turn. It just depends whether they want to go try and get use out of the Scourge Lord weapon before that, because there's still a few minions left to kill. Debatable, we'll see.
I said the Scorch Lord weapon then.
I alternate between Scourge and Scourge.
Yeah.
Which do you say?
Scourge.
Scourge, okay.
Hey, okay, Norway, I might give you this one. And if you know, Saul, I know we had a discussion about this at playoffs. I'm a fan of just slamming Anduin. And, do you remember?
Just slamming that bad boy?
About me talking a lot about how not slamming an Anduin may have lost someone a game. But anyway, we can discuss it later. But anyway.
No, I know.
Oh, you remember? Okay. So, for me, in this matchup, because it does become a race, I have a very hard time getting out of the lane of, well, I want to play Anduin now, so then every single card I play is worth more damage. But they did go for the Primordial Drake, and like, what do you think about this? What does it do over playing Anduin?
I think they're still trying to challenge to the board state. They don't want to concede the board for a turn, which is what Anduin would do, because then they have to play catch up, because this is actually quite like a robust board state to be seeing from Taunt Warrior. Normally, the minions that they're playing are like 2/4s and stuff that you don't care about, so you kind of ignore the board. But because Indonesia are playing 3/6s and another 3 attack minions, and they have 6/9s shuffling into their deck, I think Norway feel like they don't want to lose the board first. I'm going to try and use, the extra quality minions that they have, Primordial Drake into Acolyte, Cabal Shadow Priest combo, for example, get the board state fully, and then they can invest into Anduin afterwards.
Right, okay. I always see Psychic Scream and think, well, Anduin now, Psychic Scream Hero Power next turn,
sure.
and then the board doesn't exist anymore, so...
But there's still a turn in there when then they redevelop in front into the board again.
The options now is there is the Twilight Acolyte and the Cabal Shadow Priest to maybe, steal the dinosaur, so that you can just punch through the 3/3 and then steal the dino.
Yep, and
that kind of goes into Brawl, but so what at this point in the game?
This is kind of what I theorized, right? It's like, this is your big swing turn, and now Indonesia have to have a very heavily reactive turn. You saw the eyes widen from Rest down there as that combo got activated, but now Indonesia do have to have a very reactive turn, and it means that you're not playing Anduin into punishment from your opponent if that's the route that you want to go. You might still not even go there, because you still have a couple of quality options in terms of board development still in hand after this.
What's kind of nice as well is there's a 50-50 chance that after a Brawl, a Taunt minion lives, which means the Sophiorus is going into the Taunt minion, which is just more damage to Team Indonesia right now, which also helps, obviously, Norway's battle plan of actually eventually killing this warrior. Get the kind of worst outcome there.
Take 8.
Take 8 twice with coin. Oh, no, you can't. I miscounted the mana. Quite dramatically.
that's not even Twitch chat mana.
I was like, wait,
that's Justin.tv mana right there.
Oh, God. I didn't know you watched it that far back.
Oh, yeah. I've actually broadcasted a yo-yo contest on Justin TV.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't know if you just knew about it and you're trying to pass it off as like, I was there when it was Justin TV.
No, I'm an OG.
Yeah, you are old. An old geezer.
And a gangster. Yeah, fair enough. Sure, we'll go with that.
Or a geyser. I'll have to ask Jackie.
Yeah.
as to which one he says. So my issue now is at some point, you're going to have to play Anduin and take 8 to the face.
Yep.
Because you're not winning. There's no other way to win, right? You have to Anduin them and try and kill them. But do you wait until you have Alexstrasza in hand to do that and try and do Healy things between? Ooh. Oh, Healy. God, I'm Lorinda.
You are slowly devolving into Lorinda, yeah.
I like how he said devolving and not evolving, as that's who you wanted to insult. Yeah, you just have to, right?
It's the only play. I mean, this is kind of exactly what I described 3 turns ago, right? It's like, yes, you're taking 8 from the hero power, but you're not also taking 6 from a board state that you left there as well.
And also as well, this is where Holy Fire Divine Hymn starts to really mess with the math. It is not as easy as 8 times X to get lethal, right? 8 times X equals lethal. It's just all of these things actually just change those.
8 times X equals... Yeah, lethal, yeah.
It checks out, yeah. No, it's a question. It's the next question for next week's show on the Twitch chat. 8 times X equals lethal. Find X. And then someone just draws an arrow to the X.
There it is!
Oh, God. Owl's not going to do much right now. All for the rest of this game, I imagine.
It might shut us up for a bit. It could cast it on us.
Wouldn't mind a cool owl flying by.
Wow, just choosing to recycle Warpath into more options here.
Right. They have to cut in hero power, right?
Yep.
Okay. God, we really want card draw.
I guess the fear here is with them at 30 and knowing that Priests themselves play a lot of healing, that they are looking for those armor gain options themselves. They're looking for the Dry Whisker Armorers and so on. That's why they're cycling so aggressively, because they don't want, from their perspective, Norway have just played Anduin, so they have Alex in hand. That's the fear, right? And they don't want to be in the world where Alex comes down this turn and then they're pushed down to 15. They're facing a 2-turn lethal setup.
Shadowy thoughts.
I'm just worried about if Norway are considering that it's lethal on, like...
They have to. They know the Pixie's there.
Right.
And they know that like, this board state is lethal.
Yeah, it's exactly lethal, yeah. It's pretty hard to play around, though, right? Because, yeah, you can just wholly fire them or just divine him, but is that the best time to do this? I mean, it has to be if you really want. You could go wide on the board, but then what about removal?
Yeah, I think you end up using a divine him this turn. Obviously, holy fire, you really don't want to be firing off damage before you've Alex. It just
exactly, yeah, that's what I was thinking.
But like acolyte ping your acolyte divine him seems okay as a starting point this turn at least, with the obviously flex points depending on what you draw.
Do you want to play Twilight Drake though?
Potentially, yeah.
Just because it's 9. It's 9 health.
Sure. Makes sense too. So you just forego the guaranteed card draw to get a 9 health minion on board. Yeah, that makes more sense actually.
Once you get swing into the acolyte, sick. Like, you know, you feel healed for 4, so to speak.
Shield block. Okay. Indonesia will be happy to see that.
So that's 2 divine hymns gone, just to keep everyone up to date on the healer.
No, the first one was from Shadow Visions.
Oh, the Shadow Visions.
They played the Pyro, they activated the Pyro with Shadow Visions, and then they ripped the hymn afterwards.
So that's 1 divine hymn gone. So there's still 1 in the deck. As far as I'm aware, unless they're randomly playing 1, but I just cannot believe it off the top of my head.
They're playing 2.
Yeah. Not a really good card. Let's just put 1 in there. Let's give him a chance. He's going to swing into it as well. Just doesn't want them to draw more cards.
Iron Beak Owl, Shield Slam. Oh, hello. The Blood Razor would have been nice instead of the Shield Block, because then they would have been able to just do it with the Blood Razor as well as fitting in the Hero Power. But fitting in the Hero Power is much too important to be killing that with Blood Razor this turn. So they commit the Shield Slam, they get their 8 to face.
Self-lethal again. Because of the owl.
Oh, sure. I mean, the owl is never living.
No, but it's just funny.
Okay.
It's technically lethal.
Yeah, they've set up AFK disconnect lethal.
Yeah, it's the best kind of lethal to set up.
Yeah.
So I guess at this point, with so much health being on the Primordial Drake, you just press the hero power first, see what happens, and just go to face.
Again!
Is there any reason... Is there a reason not to at this point? Because the rest of the turn, you cannot kill this Drake. The rest of the turn is pretty weak.
Yeah, I guess the worry is it hits face and then your opponent draws Alex off the top and heals them. I don't know.
But it's Alex themselves.
Right, I just feel like we're in a position where you just want to fire 8 damage again this turn. Like this does not have to be the blow that kills your opponent. It's a fantastic 50-50 situation. Either of these results are great. Okay. Let's just fire the 8.
Sol's new slogan. Any of these results are great.
Oh, yeah,
let's just fire the 8.
Sure. Those accidental bars.
Mm-hmm. So now Holy Fire can be used to become safe and kill the minion on board, which is pretty important. I imagine they might start with the Shadow Visions, though.
It's a bad feeling, though, that Holy Fire going down against a deck that you know is so resilient in terms of being able to see life gain. You've seen no Dry Whisker Armorers if you're Norway come out from Indonesia. You've seen 1 shield block get used, but that's about it.
You are past the point of generating your own board, though, really, at this point in the game.
You would have thought so, yeah.
Dry Whisker Armor is not as bad, because yes, there's of course the Cornered Sentry combo.
Yep.
If that's just 6 armor and not, you know, and not 12, 14 armor, then it's not quite as bad.
Sure. But at some point, you know, you've got cards in your deck that are minions that you're going to want to convert into pings as well, right? So you will be playing minions just to be able to, like, play them out, deal 2 damage, play another one, deal 2 damage. So it's going to run into that spot at some point.
Let me change your mind.
You can see Hunter Ace is...
50-50, let's go!
Hunter Ace is not in a good feeling about this play, or does not have a good feeling about this play. I think he recognizes this game is slowly slipping away, and there is a 50-50 lethal opportunity, as Raven pointed out here.
Just bear in mind as well, those 2 Psychic Screams have been in hand since turn 1 in the game.
Right.
-2 cards. Indonesia, I've just kept up the pressure. This hero powered slides everything. I'm guessing that one went face with the reaction. Indonesia are going to take the lead versus Team Norway off the back of just, as you said, an extremely fast Quest Warrior proc. They just had it, right? They just went with the...
Has to be some kind of like loyalty thing from Nordavind or from Team Norway, or like some kind of read that they have on certain metagames that other people don't agree with or haven't picked up on yet.
Okay, so let's go into it. This could be the last game for this match if Indonesia can pip the win, but if not, Norway fights back and continues on afterwards. And looking at the mulligans, there's a card that is very, very similar, and the level up being thrown, Indonesia has it and not completed the mulligan yet, but level up, one of the higher win rate cards to be in the mulligan for the deck, believe it or not. Because guess what? Just pressing hero power and then having a strong turn 5 is very powerful. Both teams actually throwing it away. What do you think about this? Is this the mirror match?
Yes, you are absolutely correct in that it's one of the highest win rate cards across the board. You know, on the average of all matchups, level up in the opening hand is one of the best cards you can have. However, in the mirror, it's much, much, much more about early board dominance, and that's Diamoles because it kills 3 1/1s. It's Fireflies because it kills 2 1/1s. It's Argent Squires because it kills 2 1/1s.
Current hero power.
It's Corridor Creeper because after all of those 1/1s that I've just mentioned have all died, you then play a 2/5 for 0 mana.
Yeah.
Those are the cards that you really want to be having because that is how you dominate the board in the early game.
Stonehill's going to be dropped this turn, more than likely from Zorkthar and Team Norway, because it has a really good stat line for dealing with 1/1s.
It kills 4 1/1s.
It has 1 attack. You sound like some kind of like overly Americanized salesman. You want to kill 1/1s? We got 1/1s. We'll give you a Stonehill that kills 4 1/1s.
Wow, you are waving inflatable 1/1 killing man.
I think we're on something here, to be honest.
Okay.
Let's call Admirable, see what he thinks, and he'll be able to...
No, I don't want to talk to Admirable. We already established this.
I'll call Admirable, see what he thinks, and he can give us some insight.
Handle it.
Oh, I only killed 2 1/1s. I want a refund.
No refund, sir.
Already, you can see how savage this opening is for both players, right?
I was about to be really livid about Indonesia's play until I realized there was a 0 mana Corridor Creeper coming down the same turn. I'm still not 100% convinced. It's turn 3 and they didn't press the button. And originally, straight away, alarm bells are going off in my mind because of that. You know, they did pick up a nice trade, just raid leader 2 1/1s into the 1/4, of course, but they had Righteous Protector hero power. They had Diamole hero power that just spread the board so wide that what was that Stonehill defender going to do to them?
And that's the key point, right? The deck does not run away to deal with wide minions without a board. There is no Consecrate in this even Paladin list, believe it or not. You know, there's no way to deal with it. There are no minions that do AoE damage. There's nothing. So, yeah, like you said, just going wider and say, well, you've got 1 big minion, I have 7. Like, enjoy. It does win you the games, and Norway are fighting back now, just creating as many sort of big-ish 1 health minions, if that makes any form of sense, onto the board. But again, the initiative is so huge, but this is a bit of a whiff turn, though. Mainly because the hero power can be played, the 2 1/1s can be played, and that is great, but the power isn't there to actually, like, clear all of this up.
Which is a direct consequence of the fact that they played minimal bodies on the turn on the board last turn instead of maximum bodies on the board last turn. Stats almost... I'm not going to say stats are irrelevant. That would be facetious.
Please say it.
Stats are not as important as just the amount of minions that you have in play in this mirror match, because the more minions you have in play, the more breakpoints you can manipulate between, you know, your 1/1s and their minions, your buff cards, your Fungalmancers and your level ups being coming down and then trading over your opponent's similar stat.
Yeah, welcome to why Zoo is a fantastic deck through most of Hearthstone's history, right? Like, that's literally why. This is the Paladin Zoo list, effectively, instead of the Warlock Zoo list, but we just call it Odd Paladin because, well, plays a lot of odd cards. These turns get very, very tricky now, though. And putting a 2/1 into a 1/1 is actually just fine because it's kind of 2 minions for 1 because that's what Righteous Protector does very well. But I think you just lower the board every single turn. These corridor creepers are just chipping away. Who can get the most value?
But now the level up or Fungalmancer train is going to start rolling for Indonesia, and they have still been able to engineer this first board state where they can really leverage big minions.
And this Fungalmancer on these two minions specifically, nah, we're not having 3/3s. Not at all. We're having giant corridor creepers and a giant mole as well, because that is just how now does Norway deal with this? What, I don't know what card there is to kill, like their own mole would kill one of these, and that's it. Righteous Protector can buy them time, though, which is why the card is so powerful.
The light dims.
Do have the Vine Cleave.
And Indonesia have left themselves with a little bit of a whiff again on this follow-up, because they are trading off both of their 1/1s on the previous turn. They don't really have a strong play here. It's not a hero power level up turn. They can't do that until 7. So their only real playable threat originally was Firefly Flame Elemental, and now Blessing and Might being picked up doesn't really change that a great deal.
I'm looking at Leroy.
What do you want to Leroy?
So there can be double trade into the 2/1, because unfortunately that has to happen. And then the Corridor Creeper can go into the 2/2, and you can Leroy the 1/1. Does that help?
Leroy the 1/1?
No, because you don't have enough attacks, right? Okay, I wind it all back. Righteous Protector is a really good card.
It's quite strong.
It's actually insane. But in this rough position, what I was getting at is that sometimes you can just play Leroy on the board to make a good trade.
Oh, sure.
Right? But
I
Righteous
think
Protector is such a pain.
I think it's more often like the case where you'd like Leroy and then trade your small minions into the whelps that you make and then Leroy face, right? Like that's the kind of situation you like setting up. I don't think you want to be like Leroying into your opponent's 1/1s too much.
Is this Vine Cleaver just good enough?
Well, there's one coming back the other way with a level up behind it is the problem.
I'm just, from Norway's point here, like this Vine Cleaver for them could fling the game around a little bit.
Sure.
And they do have Baku as well, which sounds like a
sick.
No. I mean, like, again, Paladins have a great way to deal with one big minion, and if Zorkthar can keep the board roughly even, then having a massive minion that just isn't really killable can be a problem.
Pop quiz. 4/1 or 1/1? Which one do you want to kill? Answer, 1/1. Too slow. You fail.
I was going to say 1/1.
Okay.
Well, the damage just doesn't matter, though, right? The level up potential is scary.
The damage matters, but it's like the 1 health being buffed that's the problem. Like the 4/1 can't trade into anything without dying, whereas a 1/1 can be buffed to have 3 health.
Worst draw in the deck.
Yeah, pretty much no matter what it rolled, it was a whiff in that spot.
The only thing worse would be if it was Taunt just for a real slap in the face. No, it's worse because it's good. Right? It's not playable, and you got the Divine Shield one.
Sure.
If it was Taunt, you'd be like, don't want to play that anyway.
Let me think.
Wait. Do you actually play it this turn? You do, right?
Swing the weapon, make the board, overwrite, get
I think I
Divine
actually do play
Shield.
this turn.
I think it's a valid play, yeah.
Taunt was the worst draw he could have got in this deck, but he got Divine Shield.
Reporting for duty.
I don't think it's nailed on, though, because your opponent has a Vine Cleaver as well, so if you do end up Purifier's Mauling over the top of this, then you can just end up losing on 1/1 value over the course of the next few turns anyway. Because you're not pushing lethal anytime soon.
No,
right?
but you gain on 1/1 value, right? The Divine Shields makes every single 1/1 a second 1/1.
Sure.
Didn't go for it, though.
But you can do that next turn as well. You can
Baku's getting nailed next turn.
You can swing it. I mean, sure, play Baku next turn and don't swing the Vine Cleaver then, you know, like, and then do it the turn after. But, you know, you can always do that Divine Shield play on the last charge of your Vine Cleaver plus a hero power, and then bare minimum you're getting 4 Divine Shield 1/1s.
Sure.
You don't have to do it now.
Maybe I want to do it now, so.
Well, just follow your dreams, Raven. Don't let anyone slow you down. If you want to Divine Shield this board, you run over to Norway right now and do it.
The victory is
Oh, no, okay, I was going to, but that's not enough time right now because it doesn't matter. Indonesia are going to take the match. We talked about right at the start, Norway, one of the favorites for the whole tournament.
And look what it means to them as well.